lifetime of service. Thank you. Our nation has always honored the heroes who serve our communities. The firefighters, first responders, police, sheriffs, ICE, Border Patrol, and all of the brave men and women of law enforcement. On this July 4th, we pay special tribute to the military service members who laid down their lives for our nation. We are deeply moved to be in the presence this evening of Gold Star families whose loved ones made the supreme sacrifice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Throughout our history, our country has been made ever greater by citizens who risked it all for equality and for justice. 100 years ago this summer, the women's suffrage movement led Congress to pass the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote. In 1960, a thirst for justice led African-American students to sit down at the Woolworth lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. It was one of the very first civil rights sit-ins, and it started a movement all across our nation. Clarence Henderson was 18 years old when he took his place in history. Almost 6 decades later, he is here tonight in a seat of honor. Clarence, thank you for making this country a much better place for all Americans. In 1963, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. stood here on these very steps and called on our nation to live out the true meaning of its creed and let freedom ring for every citizen all across our land. America's fearless resolve has inspired heroes who defined our national character, from George Washington, John Adams, and Betsy Ross to Douglas, Frederick Douglass, the great Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Amelia Earhart, Douglas MacArthur, Dwight Eisenhower, Jackie Robinson, and, of course, John Glenn. It has willed our warriors up mountains and across minefields. It has liberated continents, split the atom, and brought tyrants and empires to their knees. Here with us this evening is Earl Morse. After retiring from the Air Force, Earl worked at a VA hospital in Ohio. Earl found that many World War II veterans could not afford to visit their memorial on the National Mall. So Earl began the very first honor flights that have now brought over 200,000 World War II heroes to visit America's monument. Earl, thank you. We salute you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Earl. Thank you. Thank you. Our warriors from a hallowed roll call of American patriots running all the way back to the first souls who fought and won American independence. Today, just as it did 243 years ago, the future of American freedom rests on the shoulders of men and women willing to defend it. We are proudly joined tonight by heroes from each branch of the U.S. Armed Forces. including 3 recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Thank you. They and thousands before us served with immense distinction, and they loved every minute of that service. To young Americans across our country, now is your chance to join our military and make a truly great statement in life, and you should do it. We will now begin our celebration of the United States Armed Forces, honoring each branch's unique culture, rich history, service song, and distinct legacy. I invite Acting Secretary, please, Mark Esper, Secretary of Defense, and Chairman Dunford, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, please join me. In August of 1790, by request of George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, Congress established a fleet of 10 swift vessels to defend our shores. These revenue cutters would fight pirates, stop smugglers, and safeguard our borders. They are the ancestors of our faithful Coast Guard. When our ships were seized and sailors kidnapped by foreign powers in 1812, it was a revenue cutter, the swift schooner Thomas Jefferson, that swept in to capture the first British vessel of the war. In 1897, when 265 whalers were trapped in ice and the ice fields of Alaska were closing up, courageous officers trekked 1,500 miles through the frozen frontier to rescue those starving men from certain death. In 1942, the Coast Guard manned landing craft for invasions in the Pacific when the enemy attacked U.S. Marines from the shores of Guadalcanal. Coast Guard Signalman First Class Douglas Munro used his own boat to shield his comrades from pounding gunfire. Munro gave his life. Hundreds of Marines were saved. As he lay dying on the deck, his final question embodied devotion that sails with every Coast Guardsman. Did they get off? On D-Day, the Coast Guard's famous Matchbox fleet served valiantly through every hour of the greatest amphibious invasion in the history of our country. One coxswain said the water boiled with bullets like a mud puddle in hailstorm, but still the Coast Guard braved death to put our boys on Utah and Omaha beaches. Every Coast Guardsman is trusted to put service before all. Coasties plunge from helicopters and barrel through pouring rain and crashing waves to save American lives. They secure our borders from drug runners and terrorists in rough seas, at high speeds. Their sharpshooters take out smugglers' engines with a single shot. They never miss. When the red racing stripes of a Coast Guard vessel break the horizon, when their chopper blades pierce the sky, those in distress know that the help is on their way, and our enemies know their time has come. These guardians of our waters stand semper paratus. They are always ready. They are the United States Coast Guard. Representing the Coast Guard today, you will soon see an HH-60 Jayhawk helicopter based at Coast Guard Air Station Clearwater, along with an HH-65 Dolphin from Air Station Atlantic City and an HC-144 Ocean Sentry from Air Station Miami. Thank you. Thank you to the Coast Guard. On a cold December morning in 1903, a miracle occurred over the dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, when two bicycle makers from Ohio defied gravity with a 12-horsepower engine, wings made of cotton, and just a few dollars in their pockets. Just 6 years later, America was training its first pilots to take these magnificent machines up and over the field of battle. In World War I, our flyboys rushed the skies of Europe, and aces like Eddie Rickenbacker filled hearts and headlines with tales of daring duels in the clouds. General Billy Mitchell saw the promise of this technology and risked court-martial in his quest for an independent Air Force. He was proven right when empires across the oceans tried to carve up the world for themselves, and America stood in the way. We wouldn't let it happen. After Pearl Harbor, Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle and his raiders flew B-25 bombers off a carrier deck in the deep Pacific in a daring feat of American resolve. And as President Roosevelt said, the Nazis built a fortress around Europe, but they forgot to put a roof on it. So we crushed them all from the air. 177 Liberator bombers flew dangerously low through broad daylight without fighter protection to cripple the Nazi war machine at Ploiesti. More than 300 airmen gave their lives to destroy the enemy oil refineries, and 5 pilots were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for their actions in that single raid. It was Airman Chuck Yeager who first broke the sound barrier. It was airmen like Gus Grissom and Buzz Aldrin who traded their Sabre jets for rockets to the stars. And it is our incredible airmen today who wield the most powerful weapon systems on the planet Earth. For over 65 years, no enemy air force has managed to kill a single American soldier because the skies belong to the United States of America. No enemy has attacked our people without being met by a roar of thunder and the awesome might of those who bid farewell to earth and soar into the wild blue yonder. They are the United States Air Force. Representing the Air Force, you will soon see beautiful, brand-new F-22 Raptors from Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, and one magnificent B-2 stealth bomber from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. What a great country. In October of 1775, the Continental Congress ordered the construction of 2 swift sailing vessels, each carrying 10 cannons and 80 men to sail eastward. Our young fleet tested their sea legs against the most powerful navy the world has ever seen. John Paul Jones, America's first great naval hero, said, "I wish to have no connection with any ship that does not sail fast, for I intend to go in harm's way." He got his wish many times when his ship was shot into pieces off the coast of England by a British vessel and her 4 dozen guns. When demanded to surrender, Jones very famously declared, "I have not yet begun to fight." When our Navy begins fighting, they finish the job. The War of 1812, Captain James Lawrence fell with his brothers on the USS Chesapeake. His dying command gained immortality. Don't give up the ship. In the Battle of Mobile Bay, Admiral David Farragut lashed himself to the rigging of his flagship to see beyond the cannon smoke, crying, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." In World War II, it was aviators launched from the carrier Enterprise, Hornet, Yorktown, who filled the skies of Midway and turned the tide of the Pacific War. Nobody could beat us. Nobody could come close. On D-Day, CB engineers came ashore to destroy blockades and barriers, making way for the invasion. Many lost their lives, but they took the German defenses with them, and our men crushed upon the beaches like a mighty storm. From the naval demolition units of World War II arose a force that became famous in the Mekong Delta. They don't want to see our force again. The very best of the very best, the Navy SEALs. It was the SEALs who delivered vengeance on the terrorists who planned the September 11th attack on our homeland. It was the SEALs who stand ready to bring righteous retribution in mountain, jungle, desert to those who do us harm. America's sailors are not born. They are forged by the sea. Their traditions are rich with the salt and blood of 3 centuries. When Old Glory crests the waves of foreign shores, every friend and every foe knows that justice sails those waters. It sails with the United States Navy. Representing our great Navy today will be 2 F-18 Super Hornets from Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia, along with 2 F-35 Lightnings from Naval Air Station Lemoore in California. So great. In November of 1775, the Continental Congress created 2 battalions of a new kind of warrior, one who kept and would protect our ships and sailors and be at home both ashore and in the mast with musket in hand. Their versatility was proven in the War of Independence when 234 Continental Marines conducted their first amphibious raid, capturing the British supply of gunpowder and cannons at Fort Nassau. Ever since, Marines have fought in every American war. Their legend has grown and grown and grown with each passing year. It was the Marines who won America's first overseas battle, vanquishing Barbary pirates on the shores of Tripoli. Their high, stiff collar, which shielded them from the pirate's sword, earned them the immortal name Leatherneck. It was the Marines who, after 2 long days of battle, marched through the halls of Montezuma. It was the Marines who took heavy casualties to kick the Kaiser's troops out of Belleau Wood in World War I, earning the title Devil Dogs. And it was the Marines who raised the flag on the black sands of Iwo Jima. From the Chosin Reservoir to Khe Sanh, from Helmand to Baghdad, Marines have struck fear into the hearts of our enemies and put solace into the hearts of our friends. Marines always lead the way. After the 1983 Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, which claimed the lives of 241 great U.S. servicemen, Marine Sergeant Jeffrey Nashton lay in bandages, so badly wounded, barely alive. When the commandant of the Marine Corps came to visit his hospital, Sergeant Nashton had to feel for the general's collar. He wanted to feel his 4 stars. He could not see and he could not speak. He signaled for pen and paper, and with shaking hand he wrote 2 words, Semper Fi. That motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful, burns in the soul of every Marine, a sacred promise the Corps has kept since the birth of our country. They are the elite masters of air and land and sea on battlefields all across the globe. They are the United States Marines. Representing the Marine Corps today will be a brand new VH-92, soon to serve as Marine One, along with 2 V-22 Ospreys from the famed HMX-1 helicopter squadron at Quantico, the Nighthawks. In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our Army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do. And at Fort McHenry, under the rocket's red glare, it had nothing but victory. And when dawn came, their star-spangled banner waved defiant. At Shiloh, Antietam, and Gettysburg, our soldiers gave the last full measure of devotion for the true unity of our nation and the freedom of all Americans. In the trenches of World War I, an Army sergeant named Alvin York faced an inferno of enemy fire and refused to retreat. He said, "I won't leave, I won't stop." He shot his rifle 18 times, killing 18 of the enemy. When they fixed bayonets and charged, he killed 7 more. The entire German machine gun battalion surrendered because of one man, Alvin York. A generation later, the Army returned to Europe and embarked upon a great crusade. With knives and rifles in hand, the Rangers scaled the cliffs of Normandy. The 101st Airborne leapt into the danger from above, illuminated only by enemy flares, explosions, and burning aircraft. They threw back the Nazi Empire with lightning of their own from the turrets of Sherman tanks and the barrels of the M1 rifle. In the darkness of the Battle of the Bulge, with Nazis on every side, one soldier is reported to have said, "They've got us surrounded again, the poor bastards." Outnumbered, American warriors fought through the bunkers of Pork Chop Hill and held the line of civilization in Korea. In the elephant grass of Vietnam, the 1st Cavalry made its stand amid a forest consumed in flame with enemies at every single turn. The Army brought America's righteous fury down to al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and cleared the bloodthirsty killers from their caves. They liberated Fallujah and Mosul and helped liberate and obliterate the ISIS caliphate just recently in Syria, 100% gone. Through centuries, our soldiers have always pointed toward home, proclaiming, "This we'll defend." They live by the creed of Douglas MacArthur: "In war, there is no substitute for victory." They are the greatest soldiers on earth. Nearly 250 years ago, a volunteer army of farmers and shopkeepers, blacksmiths, merchants, and militiamen risked life and limb to secure American liberty and self-government. This evening, we have witnessed the noble might of the warriors who continue that legacy. They guard our birthright with vigilance and fierce devotion to the flag and to our great country. Now we must go forward as a nation with that same unity of purpose. As long as we stay true to our cause, as long as we remember our great history, as long as we never, ever stop fighting for a better future, then there will be nothing that America cannot do. Thank you. We will always be the people who defeated a tyrant, crossed a continent, harnessed science, took to the skies, and soared into the heavens. Because we will never forget that we are Americans, and the future belongs to us. The future belongs to the brave, the strong, the proud, and the free. We are one people chasing one dream and one magnificent destiny. We all share the same heroes, the same home, the same heart, and we are all made by the same Almighty God. From the banks of the Chesapeake to the cliffs of California, from the humming shores of the Great Lakes to the sand dunes of the Carolinas, from the fields of the heartland to the Everglades of Florida, the spirit of American independence will never fade, never fail, but will reign forever and ever and ever. So once more, to every citizen throughout our land, have a glorious Independence Day. Have a great 4th of July. I want to thank the Army Band, the National Park Service, the Interior Department, the incredible pilots overhead, and those who are making possible the amazing fireworks display later this evening. Now, as the band plays the Battle Hymn of the Republic, I invite the First Lady, Vice President and Mrs. Pence, the service secretaries and military leaders to join me on stage for one more salute to America by the famous, incredible, talented Blue Angels. God bless you, God bless the military, and God bless America. Happy 4th of July.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again, it was my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart. It's time we stand and say, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love
You've been watching President Trump's Salute to America celebration. We're going to take a quick break, then get you caught up on the news of the day. Stay with us. You're streaming CBSN. In a Money Watch story that everyone's taco bouting, there's a shortage of tortillas at some Taco Bell restaurants. The chain says it's a supplier issue. Taco Bell has not shared how many of its 7,000 locations across the country are impacted, but promises it is, quote, working diligently to replenish the supply. Until then, stick with nacho fries. The CDC is warning pet owners about a possible salmonella outbreak linked to pig-eared dog treats. At least 45 people in 13 states have been affected. No deaths have been associated with the outbreak. Investigators have not identified a common supplier of the treats. Health officials are warning those choosing to continue giving dogs the treat to keep it in areas in contact without any contact with humans, and be sure to wash your hands. And Boeing is pledging to give $100 million to help families and communities impacted by 2 deadly crashes involving its 737 MAX jets. The crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia killed 346 people. Boeing says the money will go to local governments and nonprofit organizations over multiple years. The payout, however, will not impact the numerous lawsuits filed by victims' families. 21 undocumented immigrants formerly employed by President Trump have requested to meet with him to discuss the country's immigration system. In a letter to the White House Wednesday, former Trump Golf Club employees asked the president to, quote, do the right thing to find a home for us here in America so we can step out of the shadows. Dozens of people without legal citizenship claim to have worked for the Trump Organization and have come forward in recent months. Some say the company hired them knowing their legal statuses. Trump Organization officials say the workers used fake documents to get their jobs and were fired once the company found out. The White House has not responded to the letter. And lawmakers in New Jersey are demanding a judge be removed over the way he handled a case involving the alleged rape of a 16-year-old girl. The judge declined to charge the 16-year-old suspect as an adult, in part because he came from, quote, a good family. The suspect recorded the alleged attack on his cell phone and shared it with friends. Meg Oliver is following the story.
Critics are slamming New Jersey Judge James Troiano's ruling, saying he was too lenient toward a 16-year-old boy accused of assaulting a girl at a party. Prosecutors said the teen shared video of the alleged incident and texted friends saying when your first time having sex was rape. But Troiano described the suspect as an Eagle Scout, saying he came from a good family and was doing extremely well in school. CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman.
It is remarkable in this day and age that a judge could look at the facts of this case and not consider this situation a serious enough crime that would warrant this young man being tried as an adult.
The judge also questioned out loud whether the encounter was a rape, saying rape usually involved two or more males using a weapon, sometimes in an abandoned house or shed. Troiano is now drawing comparisons to former California Judge Aaron Persky. He sentenced Stanford University student Brock Turner to 6 months in jail for assaulting an unconscious woman, writing a prison sentence would have a severe impact on Turner.
These kinds of biases and attitudes are completely incompatible with serving as a judge.
Michelle Dober led the successful campaign to recall Persky last year. She worries these rulings could have a chilling effect when it comes to reporting similar crimes.
Decisions like this and statements like this that favor accused perpetrators really depress victims' willingness to come forward.
An appeals court overturned the judge's decision and warned him about expressing bias towards privileged teenagers. The case may move to a grand jury now, where the suspect would be tried as an adult. A spokesperson for the judge told CBS News he has no comment. A woman who was injured by a foul ball in Houston says Major League Baseball games must extend protective netting. Tracy Neighbors broke her jaw after being hit 2 weeks ago at a Minute Maid Park during batting practice before an Astros-Blue Jays game. The incident comes just 2 weeks after a ball fractured a 2-year-old girl's head at the same ballpark. Neighbors said a souvenir is not worth the risk.
I know that people want those foul balls. Those foul balls are not worth going through this or losing a loved one. A foul ball is not worth that.
Matt Snyder is an MLB writer for CBSSports.com. He joins me now from Noblesville, Indiana. All right, Matt, baseball's been played for more than 100 years, and it didn't seem that they used to have this extended netting. Is this a new phenomenon that fans are getting hit, or are we just paying more attention because of social media?
I think it might be a little bit of both. The players hit the ball way harder these days than they used to, and we see a lot more foul balls. We see a lot more line drive foul balls where it's going to be right at somebody. One of the most annoying things to me is when somebody says, just pay attention, just pay attention. Well, there's a ball coming at you 110 miles per hour. Somebody might duck in front of you at the last minute. I don't think it's just as simple as saying just pay attention or quit looking at your phones. I think that sometimes you just don't have a chance because we're human beings, and a ball coming at you 110 miles per hour, there's only so much somebody can do. So I do think that they need to extend it. Look, at the end of the day, you have a product, you want people to come watch your product, you want people to feel safe watching your product, so you need to protect those people.
And Matt, there seems to be an argument about how far the netting should be extended. Last year, Major League Baseball said all 30 teams would place netting out to at least the dugouts. Is that far enough, or should it go beyond just the dugout?
I think that if they went all the way past the dugouts and then tapered it down to the foul pole, so it's kind of like looks like a triangle once it's past the dugout, that probably would be sufficient. But going all the way to the foul pole is not such a terrible idea. The Pirates, White Sox, and Nationals also, they're going to go all the way to the foul pole. Again, that's not a terrible idea. I mean, I would rather err on the side of more netting than less netting because, again, we need to quit. There was a little girl who I believe was 4 years old who fractured her skull at an Astros-Cubs game earlier this year. I mean, if we're going to talk about that, then, again, err on the side of more nets, not less.
So in your expert opinion, I mean, does this netting really impact the visual experience or the ability to really see the game? Is that any argument for not extending it that far?
I actually think that it really does not. I've been behind. I see this on social media all the time. People keep saying, I hate sitting behind the nets because I can't see as well. If you've actually sat behind them, it's really not that big of a deal. It's not that different. Still, the prices for the seats directly behind home plate in the front row are always the highest. That shows that's the highest demand. That shows people still want to sit there. I don't think it really impacts the vision that much, and that's why I say err on the side of more nets instead of fewer.
So, Matt, according to data from the Baseball Reference, there were 14,000 more foul balls hit in 2018 than in 1998. That's an increase of nearly 12%. Why is that? Is that just the players getting stronger?
The pitchers are that much better. The stuff is that much better. I mean, they're throwing harder than ever. Almost every team seems like they wheel a guy who throws 98 and 99 in relief off of an assembly line. Then you've got hard sliders, you've got splitters, you've got cutters. It's harder than ever to square a ball up. So obviously there are going to be more foul balls. Players are stronger than ever. They hit for more power than ever. That's why there are more hard foul balls. That's why there are more line drive foul balls. It's only going to increase from here. And again, we go back to that's why there should be more netting.
Well, Matt, it does seem there's some support for this from players. Players for the Chicago Cubs called for the nets to be extended after a young girl was hit last month. What recourse do the players have to force the MLB to make this change?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are going to have to talk about in front of the next collective bargaining agreement that we don't even need to get into now. Player salary issues, the teams not spending as much in free agency as they used to. But they could include this in bargaining talks. And obviously the players, I can see why the players have been vocal about this, because if we put ourselves in their shoes, if we put ourselves in Albert Almora's shoes when he hit that line drive in Houston and he saw it hit a little girl and it ended up fracturing her skull, you don't want to be the person who did that, even though you know it's not your fault. Logically speaking, somebody could go up to Albert Almora and say, that was not your fault. You were just doing your job. You were just playing the game. But at the end of the day, he still hit a line drive that hit a little girl's head and fractured her skull. That's going to stay with you. That's never going to leave you. So obviously, from the player's perspective, they want as much netting as possible because they don't want to have to feel like that when they're trying to do their jobs. And I think that we should all empathize with that and get on board with that and say, we want to see people not be hit in the head by a foul ball anymore. So I think that they could lean on the ownership side in collective bargaining agreements. And yeah, I really do think that they could have some leverage on this situation.
Of course, easy to empathize with the players there. Matt Snyder, thank you so much. The U.S. women's soccer team is celebrating July 4th in France after clinching a spot in the finals. The defending champions beat England in a nail-biting game and will now play Netherlands for the World Cup title. Midfielder Sam Ewis joined CBS This Morning to talk about her experience so far and how the team is preparing for the big final.
Since none of us at this table have ever been to a World Cup final, please tell us what this feels like, what this last week has been for you.
Yeah, it's so exciting for all of us here, and there's 23 of us on the team, and I think it's a dream come true for everybody. Some of the girls have been here before, and for some of us it's our first time, and I think that it's really just something that we've dreamed about for so long in the past month, and honestly even all of our preparation over the past couple of years has really led us here, and it's awesome to be able to share that with my teammates and to be able to play in really what is the biggest soccer game in the world. So we're all just really excited and busy getting ready for Sunday.
Sam, do you guys follow the chatter over here in the States over the celebrations, whether they're too much or not? Do you follow it, and what do you think about it?
To be honest, I don't personally follow it that much. I think that I'm really just staying focused on what we're trying to do, and that's win. And I think mainly our focus just has to be on preparing for our next game and getting ready for that.
And Sam, you know, this is the first time that the Netherlands will be facing a World Cup final. What sort of challenges do you think that presents? How are you all preparing going into this one?
Yeah, Netherlands is going to be a great team. We have seen them play really well throughout this whole tournament, and their team has just been growing and growing over the past couple of years. They've had a lot of success, so we know it's going to be a huge game, and we have a lot of work to do to get ready to play them, and I think it's going to be a really exciting game.
You know, team captain Megan Rapinoe has said that if you all win and you're invited to the White House, she won't go. Alex Morgan has said the same. Have you discussed it as a team, and what are your thoughts if you all win? And, you know, we're all cheering for you, and you get the invite to go to the White House. Will you go?
We haven't discussed it as a team because we have to win first, and that's our number one priority.
Get it.
I support my teammates 100%, but we're really just focusing on winning the game on Sunday.
Sam, I just want to follow up on Tony's question. I know you said that you all haven't discussed it, the chatter here in the United States, but the main concern that people have, they say the U.S. team is too arrogant. Do you think that you all are too arrogant? What do you say specifically to that charge?
I think that there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance, and personally I get all of my confidence from my teammates, and when I look around the room and see the kinds of women that I'm surrounded with, it makes me feel like we can do anything. And I think that just sharing in that and sharing this experience together and gaining all of this together, doing all of this together, is what gives us confidence, and I think that that's all that we've showcased here. I don't think that arrogance really has anything to do with it, and I'm really proud of everything my teammates have done for this whole tournament. I think that we've represented ourselves really well, and I'm just proud of the women that I'm here with.
As millions of Americans celebrate the 4th of July, safety officials are issuing their usual warning about fireworks. Hundreds of people visit the emergency room every year with injuries from the explosives. Kenneth Craig reports.
Fireworks can be a blast, and plenty of people will be setting off their own at home, but as this demonstration shows, it comes with risk. On Sunday, paramedics were called to a home in Philadelphia. A little girl lost almost all of her fingers after an explosive like this blew up in her hands.
She had cuts and burns to her chest and torso area and to her face.
Her father purchased the illegal device on the street, believing it was a firework.
They're not fireworks in any way, shape, or form. These, by definition, are improvised explosive devices.
Illegal and homemade explosives are a major safety hazard. It's one reason why about 180 people go to the emergency room every day with fireworks-related injuries in the weeks around July 4th. Many accidents happen when flying fireworks are involved, and 44% of injuries involve burns, often from sparklers.
Those can run anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 degrees. I mean, just setting it on a kid's hand for only a moment can burn severely. The problem is it just takes one time, and that injury can be life-altering.
Michael Spencer knows that all too well.
People lose fingers.
Last year, he told the Consumer Product Safety Commission how a mortar-type explosive went off while he was holding it.
So off of my left hand, I lost my pinky, I lost my ring finger.
Experts say don't use illegal or recalled fireworks, never give them to children, and it's always safer just to watch a professional show from a distance. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, New York.
We're back after a quick break. You're streaming CBSN, always on.
CBS News. Original reporting.
Teenage tennis phenom Coco Gauff advanced to the third round of the championships at Wimbledon. The 15-year-old from Atlanta made a name for herself on the world stage when she beat Venus Williams in the first round earlier this week. Williams had already won 4 major tournaments before Gauff was even born. Gauff won her second round match in straight sets on Wednesday night. She will play again Friday at 12:30 p.m.